Welcome back to Switch to Linux. Well, today we just want to do a really brief review on how to add desktops onto an Arch system. So I'm going with EndeavourOS. Of course, if you just download the live key for EndeavourOS, boot that up and install the system using the offline method, you will get the XFCE build that we have here. So it's actually pretty nice, but you might want to install other desktop environments. Now, they do actually have a packages list here. The packages list really doesn't give you a lot. We can go in and install the Gnome desktop if we wanted to. These are really more just Gnome packages. Installing the desktop itself is not quite as intuitive there. Same with KDE here. But you can actually install any desktop you can that you could install off of Arch, because EndeavourOS and Arch are really fundamentally not all that different. So what I have here is the Arch Linux desktop environment page. And what that's going to show you is it's going to show you just a little bit about the package. We can click on this link over here, which is going to give us the package list. And then this over here is how to install it. Now on Cinnamon, I install Cinnamon and Cinnamon Desktop. So you might need to do a little bit of individual research. That's quite easy. Just do Arch install Cinnamon, and we should get something pretty high up on the list to walk through it. Now, if you're building your Arch system from scratch, you might need to walk through here and set some of the settings and sessions and things like that. And with EndeavourOS booting into this system, you really don't need to do that. Everything's going to be pretty much configured once you get everything set up out of the box. But you might just go ahead and just do some basic researching there about how you can find things. But for the most part, you just need to install the packages that come over here. So we're just going to boot up a little terminal. And if I wanted to install Cinnamon, for example, I would do sudo pacman-S and then Cinnamon. Now, like I said, I also do Cinnamon Desktop. So when we do this, it's going to give us our password prompt. You can see it's installing a series of just a series of packages. You can see most of these are Cinnamon, and then we see Cinnamon over here, and then we see Cinnamon Desktop over here. You do need both of these, I believe, to get it to work. I know when I just did it as a test, I think Cinnamon Desktop did not actually get me everything I needed. Cinnamon, though, was able to do that. So there we are. So once it goes ahead and installs everything, we should be set to go. So that's pretty much what we need to do. So let's just go ahead and reboot the system right now. So let's do sudo reboot. And then the system is going to reboot. And then when it reboots, we should have the option now to choose our Cinnamon on our desktop environment screen. All right, so now that we have landed here, let's enter my super secret password. And then up here in the corner, now we have the option, we have XFCE, now we have the option to install Cinnamon as well. So go ahead and select Cinnamon from our list, and then it is going to boot up the first time. You might need to go in and change a few settings. In my case, I did test this first by installing Cinnamon, and then I installed a better theme. Well, I set up a better theme, so this theme looked a whole lot nicer than the default I got out of the box, but this one works really nice. Very nice out of the box. Now, if I install other desktop environments, remember that you actually do have the option to come in here, and we have our ability to change our login managers as well. Just got to figure out where that spot was. Okay, there's your display manager. So right now we're in LightDM. We have GDM, LXDM, SDDM. I like LightDM the best, so I'm just going to go ahead and keep it there. Now, let's say, for example, that we would like to run something else. So let's say you want to run GNOME. You can go ahead and just do sudo pacman GNOME. So here we have the option, which repositories do you want to do? Do you want to run everything? The default, so just pushing enter is going to run everything. This is going to install a lot of extra tools. Now, most of these you're going to need. Some of these like Cheese, Epiphany, File Roller, a lot of these are things that it needs to install some of these are just packages, like you can do without cheese, you can do without Epiphany. Some of these are things that you are actually going to need. So just looking at this, Gnome, let's see, Gnome menus, I'm not sure, Gnome user share possibly. Shell extensions, you might want to install that. Gnome user docs, Gnome themes extra, Gnome remote desktop. Some of these things you are going to want to install. Just by default, I'm going to go ahead and just install everything here. And so let's go ahead and just do that. And this might take a moment, so I'll pause the video for this to install. Now we need to do a default as number 1. So we're going to go ahead and reinstall File Roller. And now we're set to go. All right, so that took 2 minutes to install everything. Let's go ahead and do another reboot. And now back on our login manager. Now we should see some GNOME builds. So we have a couple gnomes. We have a GNOME Classic, GNOME Org. Here's our XFCE. Here's our Cinnamon we're on. So one of these ones here, I'm not sure why we have 2 of them exactly. I might need to dig into the system and figure that out. My guess is this might be GNOME with Wayland. Let's go ahead and log in and see if we get a successful login. We should be on the GNOME desktop. Now, since this is the first time I am logging into the GNOME desktop, it may not boot full screen. We'll just go ahead and fix that real quick. And then any other settings that we change should pretty much be retained. So here's an option, very first login. We're going to get everything popping up here. Do we want to change the wallpaper? Nah, we'll go ahead and keep that wallpaper where it is. Let's go ahead and do our settings and then down into displays and go ahead and change our display back to our preferred. So there we are. Now we are running our GNOME desktop. Now we do have Gnome-Software. I need to check if the repositories are working. Let's go ahead and check on that. That may or may not need configured. So we'll look at getting that guy configured if it's not already configured. Let's go ahead and look at software repositories. So it looks like FlatHub is the only thing that is configured. So we'll go ahead and look at fixing that. All right, so I had to reboot the system there. My VirtualBox kind of crapped out on me a little bit. All right, so what we wanted to do to get Gnome-Software working, whoops, I hit Files, not Gnome-Software. There we are. What we had to do to get Gnome-Software working, now you can see that we have Gnome-Software. If I go into my software repositories, so we still have FlatHub that was enabled. If I wanted to remove it, I can just go ahead and remove FlatHub if I don't want to use Flatpaks. We have Multilib, Extra, EndeavourOS, Core, Community. So what we needed to do to get those working is I did a series of checks. That was what I did there. So this one here, Pacman-Q, grep Gnome-Software, it showed us which software plugins we were using. So Package Kit allows you to define your repositories. So what we need to do is install Gnome-Software Package Kit plugin, and then this is what you need to connect your repository list. We also did the Arch Linux app stream data as well. I plugged this in because the instructions kind of tell you to put both of those in. And then once I did those, then I needed to refresh the package kit. So pkcon refresh. This is going to refresh all of your packages. After you do all that, go ahead and do yourself a reboot. And then we will have Gnome-Software now configured to use your Arch repositories. So now we are up and running with Gnome-Software. So there we've looked at installing Cinnamon and installing GNOME. If I were to pull up Firefox again, we can go up and find the list of desktop environments. And once again, you could just go through and install a series. Let's go and restore a session. You can go ahead and install a series of desktop environments. Now, there is going to be one caution here, is that some desktop environments, systems, and configuration settings could conflict with one another. So you have to be aware of that there might be some wonkiness going on if you go back and forth between different desktop environments. For example, I know if you install Deepin, it requires the Deepin login manager, and then if you remove Deepin, you actually have to go in and change your LightDM configuration settings. Some of the settings you might do with Gnome may conflict with Budgie because their Budgie is dependent on Gnome. And so you have to be aware of those types of items there. But regardless, you actually have the ability to go through your Arch install and pretty much go through the terminal and install any desktop environments. You could install many of these if you wanted to and play around with which ones you like the most. But that's actually what we did to get things running. Hopefully this gets you started with, you can get a simple install going on your EndeavourOS, then just use the terminal to install different desktop environments. No big deal, and you can get your system all configured up the way that you want. So thanks for coming along, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux. Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.